Hopefully this is the first poem of a series, and it's called A Life I've Not Lived. It has the aim of looking at people from other perspectives and walking in their truth. So the first one I wanted to present for today is If I Were a Woman. A life I have not lived, if I were a woman, with being as we know it, the X and Y's deciding fate, this work of art asks, it demands imagination, that of the extreme extent. It calls I to look at the lives of fetuses, infants, girls and ladies of all origins, of all faiths, of all faiths. My limbs run to the far and Middle East, to the north of Africa, to be an XX conceived there, to not be given a choice to live, to be a victim of abortion, that of sex selective. As I would have lower wage earning, as I would stop the family line, as I would become an economic burden. That's the reality I would be conceived in. For it to stop a birth, it would be one thing, ironically not. In China, women to be wed, being missed, there being such a thing as bride price inflation. In Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, I would have the honor of being 30% of the globally missing. Hopping onto the imagination train once again, going to the land beyond the Caucasus Mountains, if my origins were to be in Azerbaijan. If I were to abide by the norms, I ought to keep my voice soft, low, and implicit. I ought to stay in and cook soup at home. I ought to be submissive, leave the dominance to men. I ought to choose a woman's major. I ought to be here and there. All this, and especially in the regions of mental rule, to be considered pure, a pure female to be wed. To be stalked is to be courted. Curse, smoke, drink, sex, out of the question. Let the man go to brothels, pubs, and all those places where I ought to be, is sit with my legs closed, waiting for that same man to come home and violate my innocence. If I allow it or not, no matter, I ought to be with him, the dominance. Let me swing closer to home, the country to the West Sudan. Let me tell you a story of a woman, a story which drove the headlines. A girl subject to marriage by force, as it was her father and new husband's choice. Despite her best attempts to run away, Noura tricked her to coming back home. Despite her saying no, raped by her own husband. Her voice being muffled and not heard, she stabbed him in self-defense. Despite telling her truth, disowned by her own family, despite defending her truth, sentenced to death. Justice for Noura. Hundreds of thousands raised their voice. The death penalty repealed, yet 5 years imprisonment and a fine of $8,400. I took this story to show to be born there, this issue is not uncommon, to be treated like nothing more than an object. Noura fortunately got her cries for justice heard, unlike many others. Now what about Ethiopia? What if my birthplace as a woman were to be here? Would it be so bright or so grim? Let's see. FGM and child marriage still prevalent, women in provocative dresses and high heels being discriminated as prostitutes in high-end hotels. A Madam President, a minister, cabinet of quota, half of women. Is that all to look up to? Is that all to be for a country in the lower portion towards gender inequality? In the land of scriptures praising women to be the crown jewel, the wise eye, and the supporting left bone? So much I haven't looked upon and tried to see. For instance, existence of a society in Papua New Guinea, the Itoro. Semen of men is limited, so for women to want too much sex, they're considered witches. So older men would ejaculate into boys' mouths to empower growth of manhood.
What does this look like?
I'm nearing the end, and I ask myself, is that all there is? The struggle? My intention is not to victimize. To be a woman would be an honor. To be the bearer of life, to be the symbol of empowerment, to be a living proof of survival, to be a living proof of strength and endurance. Yet I took time for the problems, very much global, although one can't say there aren't fights for all to endure. Last token of hope to embark on, there will be better days to come. Life pities no one, so only if we work for those days. One cannot forget, one dare not say otherwise, the struggle is real. Sexism, discrimination, patriarchy, victim blaming, real. Feminism doesn't put men as victims, it fights for all to be equal. Be a bad feminist, it doesn't matter, it's a step. Fight for gender equality, for at this rate 220 years, that's when we'll be there. One equal, unique, through humanity, never forget. Thank you.